All right, Trevon. So we had a lot of trades go on during the trade deadline, and there was a lot of speculation in terms of how teams would be after the trade deadline. And then the buyout market came, and one of the big stories and one of the big uh, players in the trade deadline were the Clippers, and also signing Russell Westbrook after he had a buyout with the Utah Jazz. And we just got our first look at the new look Clippers with Russ, with Miles Plumlee and Eric Gordon and other players that they acquired at the trade deadline and the buyout market. So my question to you is, does do those moves help the Clippers in terms of championship contention, and are these new look Clippers in a better position to win a championship than they were before they made these moves?
Um, I feel like we would still have to see them play some more games and see, but from an initial standpoint of how the game looked with Russell Westbrook's first game, I felt like he played a pretty well rounded game. His presence as far as having rim pressure and getting in the paint consistently is going to help a lot of guys get wide open threes, even Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, which will take that offensive load off of them because they won't have to initiate plays a lot of times while providing a lot of the shot creation and scoring, and also playing on the other side of the ball, as we know they both can do.
Hmm.
Um, so I know a lot of people had skepticism about Russ as far as locker presence and his play style, but I actually think this is probably one of, if not the best fits that you can have on a team. When you have Russell Westbrook on your team, because you have people who can shoot from the three. I think pretty much almost every player or every wing player or perimeter player that the Clippers have shoot at least mid 30s from the 3-point range. And then you also have professional shot creators with Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, Norman Powell can create his shot. Eric Gordon has proven to do stuff throughout his career. So I think from that standpoint, plugging Russ into that team will definitely help, especially with how hard he plays. I think it can rub off on other people. And also it really matters when it comes down to the playoffs. You still have guys like Bones Highland who you just traded for, and you also have, you mentioned to me, Robert Covington didn't even get to play that game against the Sacramento Kings. So we know Tyronn Lue is pretty good at adjustments, especially in the playoffs, and I feel like him having this deep of a roster will give him the flexibility to, maybe this isn't the best series to play Russ, and you need 3-point shooter from Bones, or you need some more versatility defensively from a guy like Robert Covington who can still provide stuff offensively. So I think just, this makes them a little more deeper. Reggie Jackson and Luke Kennard were, obviously very important to the success they've had in recent years. But I'm not mad at this move. I think that this gives him a different dynamic. Russ will speed up the tempo a little bit more. Mason Plumlee gives you another backup big, which is one of the things I felt like they needed to address. So I think that they have a good chance. I believe they have a really good chance of making it to the conference finals and possibly the NBA finals with how wide open the Western Conference has been this whole year.
Yeah, no, I think you hit on a lot of really good points. And to be honest with you, when they were making those moves, I wasn't really sure because I really liked what Reggie Jackson brought to the team in terms of another player that can score. And while Kawhi and PG were out last year, and when they were sitting on the bench this year, he was another scorer that could go get his own shot and be effective that way. Um, and at first I was like, man, they really didn't even give John Wall, the whole John Wall experiment a chance, in my opinion. And I was hoping that they could figure that out, but they didn't. And I I feel like, Russ just came in and played that role well in his first game. It's only one game. I mean, it's a regular season game, only one game. It was a really good game, a high scoring game uh, against a team that should make the playoffs in the Sacramento Kings. So just from looking at that one game, it looked good. I just and honestly, it went a lot better than what I was expecting. But when you look at the game, when you look at the team, it's a way better fit than uh, for Russell Westbrook than it was for him for the Lakers. Because like you just said, they have shooters that can space the floor, but I think what really makes it uh, really good is that he has multiple players that can go get their own shot and go score and make tough baskets. So that dynamic kind of helps offset Russ's lack of shooting, and it kind of highlights his strengths, which is like you said, rim pressure, pushing the ball in transition, which is something that the Clippers were not really good at. But last year, John Wall was doing a good job of trying to push the pace as well when he was there, and now you have Russ to do it, and like you said, put pressure on the rim, and also you give Russell um, bigs like Zubac or Miles Plumlee that he can do a pick and roll in and make plays as he gets into the paint, dropping it off or kicking it out like he did in OKC when he was there by himself and he won the MVP there as well. So one other thing about the Clippers is that, like you just mentioned, they're so versatile. They can throw out any lineup out there. They can go small. They can have a big in there. Zubac is really he's a good rim protector. Maybe not the most elite one, but he can protect the rim, which and they were missing him in the game against Sacramento, which they really could have used more rim protection, but you have multiple lineups you can throw out there. You have multiple players that can play, so they're still really a really deep team. Um, but I feel like they have to get used to each other because Russ, I feel like he was kind of thinking a little too much during the first game. So as the season goes on and they get used to each other, he'll get more comfortable. I think that's something that the Clippers as a whole can do a better job of, as well as just finishing games, making sure you um, put the team out of reach and keep them out of reach and continue to have your foot on the gas at the end of the game. Don't turn the ball over as much, all that stuff. So it's I think that they are, if not in a very similar position than they were before, they are in a really good position. But they have a high ceiling, but they just haven't reached it yet for one reason or another. I think that's really been the story with the Clippers. They have a lot of potential, a lot of talent on their team, and they have high expectations, but they just haven't been able to reach it yet. So
Yeah. Focusing and to focus on Russ, he did have a good game. I think he had a double double as far as points and assists.
he did, yeah.
Um, but he did have 7 turnovers. And
Hmm.
as a Laker fan, I've watched almost every Laker game pre trade deadline, and he's constantly up and down. Now that was probably due largely to the fit of the roster surrounding the players that had around Russ and Brian and Anthony Davis. So this would be a better fit, and I feel like it'll kind of not hide that, but it will kind of reduce the impact of him making those mistakes. I know in the Clippers game he was expecting a slip out of a pick and roll, and they wanted a hold on the roller, but it resulted in a turnover. And he did one of those things. A lot of times he'll leave his feet and, like he said, dump it off to the bigs, which I've said I feel like could be, you could argue, is probably more important for you to have with Russ, a big that can just catch those aggressive passes and just go straight up than having ultimate spacing. But a lot of times he'll drive in, jump, and then make a pass and put too much heat on it, and then it's a turnover. So I feel like he'll be able to play how he plays more without it impacting the game as negatively as it was the Lakers, just because the lopside, of talent that the Clippers have compared to the Lakers. Um, but as a whole, for the Clippers, also, I feel like they really have to get over that hump of breaking down at the end of games.
Hmm.
Um, I know Kawhi was taking a lot of those shots, and they were really, really, really short on the end of those games. And that's probably, I feel like that's due to the length of the game. But looking at that, it kind of makes me wonder how long can he hold up during a playoff run? Simply because he is coming off that injury, and when the games get tight and close like that, he's gonna take those pull up jumpers, those step backs, and you need your legs in order to do that. So how is he gonna hold up the deeper they're going to a playoff run? And is Paul George going to show up in those moments? Is Russell Westbrook going to make the right plays in those late game moments? Can you even have Russ in the game in those late game moments? There's a lot of things like that that we'll have to see. But I like them going. I like them going into the playoffs before the deadline, and I still like them. How they are currently constructed now. It's just like every other team that made a lot of changes at the deadline. You just got to get that chemistry together, and as all together, the Clippers before the trade, they just need to figure out how they're going to consistently close games and not just let go of the ropes at the end.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest thing. And there are challenges with how to use players, and every player has weaknesses. Every player has something that you can kind of exploit. It's just um, trying to figure out a way to put a team out there where you can cover up as much weaknesses as possible, and have a game plan that tailors to your strengths. So with Russ, I just feel like some of his weaknesses are um, a little easier to exploit, and it makes it a little harder to hide those weaknesses. But overall, I think his strengths, if they are able to hit it right and, like you say, get things going together in these last 20 something games or whatever, however many is left, if they can figure something out, I feel like this team is dangerous. But like you said, they have to figure out ways to uh, not allow teams to come back on them.